astronauts come back from space, many of them talk about a new perspective they have on the world. And they call that the overview effect. The overview effect is a profound cognitive shift in awareness that comes from seeing the Earth as a planet. It's an understanding of the fragile and delicate nature of the planet. The fact that everything from the grizzly bear in Alaska to the coffee cup at Pret is connected. A look at the overview to see the world from a distance changes your perspective. And astronauts get to see the world as it is. They get to see it as a strange rock floating alone in space, in the harsh vacuum that space is. And they get to realize, and I guess they get to see in a true sense, that there is no planet B. There is no one coming to save us from ourselves. It's up to us. Hear the words of NASA astronaut Ron Garan of how the overview effect influenced him. I'm going to give you a minute to read them. Now, this picture is Earthrise. Now, it's 50 years pretty much to the date since this was taken by the crew of Apollo 8. They were on their mission to to the moon. and it wasn't scheduled, it wasn't on their manifold, but for some reason they turned back and they looked back at Earth and they took this photo. And it changed everything. It's probably the most important picture that we have. And for us who've never been to space, I guess it can give us a little taste of that overview. The overview is so important to me because I feel like I know what Ron Garan was talking about. 10 years ago, pretty much to the day, I was cycling across the Taklamakan Desert in Western China. I was on a long journey myself, trying to get some perspective on the world. And because I didn't have the cash to go to space, I did the next logical thing, which was to do a full circumnavigation of the globe. It took me 18 months, and I covered about 31,000 kilometers. I crossed deserts, mountain ranges, jungles, grassy plains, and miles upon miles of urban sprawl. Now, you learn things on long, difficult journeys, things that you could never learn in a book. And as I did a global transect, I saw business as we've been doing it for the last 500 years. I saw truck after truck pulling lumber out of the jungles of South America. I saw mountains of coal piled high to fuel the Chinese economy, and cities all over the world where people want to move faster, they want to consume more, they want to produce more, and they want to live just like us. If you travel long enough in one direction, you end up back where you started. And after my big journey, I expected to come home and triumph. I expected to feel like I'd conquered something. In fact, I'd covered 31,000 kilometers. I expected to feel like it was an achievement. But I just felt like Ron, the same kind of odd mix of melancholy and a sense that absolutely anything is possible if we put our mind to it and if we look at things from the right perspective. But I felt a real concern that we weren't going to see things from that perspective. Now, I cycle around the world because I wanted to get to know it. I wanted to get intimate with the world. I wanted to feel it and I wanted to experience it. And to explore the world is to know that it is a fragile oasis. It is an island. It's a spaceship floating in a vacuum. And it's the only place in the universe that's protected life since the dawn of time. To know the earth is to know that it's a place of fragile peace, and to know it's a place of serious inequity. And to know it is to feel for people who don't have enough to drink or don't have enough to eat. And when we look at the earth, we shouldn't just see it as a place filled with natural resources. We need to change our perspective. We need to see it as a fragile home. And the overview effect influenced me with what I do today. I'm a geography teacher and I'm an explorer. I've led expeditions for the Royal Geographical Society and worked with big brands. I spent 15 years cycling, walking, hitching, paddling around the planet. And in all of that time, I've learned that essentially the Earth is just a fragile spaceship. But by far my most educational or exciting adventure has been the last 6 years I've spent working in schools in South London. Teaching geography is pretty hard these days. Hope for a better future traditionally was the fuel that drove education. And if I'm honest, I think we're running on fumes at the moment. How do you teach kids about the world when it looks like the world is falling apart? And that's a genuine question. I still haven't figured that out yet. And how do you prepare kids for the future when you can't honestly say the future is going to be stable? And again, that's an honest question. I still am trying to work that out. It's not looking great for people and planet right now. And if we talk about the triple bottom line, what is the point of profit if people and planet are suffering? If I was standing here last year, I probably would still have more of that melancholy that I came back from cycling around the world with. I probably would have said that there's not really any hope in saving things. But in the last year, it feels like things have shifted. We're having the conversations now that I was worried we were never going to have. And that's what today is about. It's having those difficult conversations and then working together on the solutions. This year, the school strikes have awoken something in me that I, if I'm honest, I thought was gone. They reminded me of a conversation I had with one of my students in my very first year of teaching. Now, Michael had come to the school I was teaching in from Ghana. He'd had very little formal education. And it was my job to get him a GCSE in about a year. Now, I was handing him back test after test with really dismal results. And I remember one day I handed him back a test and he was still really upbeat and chipper. And I said, how are you feeling about the GCSE, Michael? And he's like, yeah, I'm really hopeful. I'm going to do really well. And I said to him, you know, hope isn't enough. Hope needs to be based on something. There needs to be some sort of fact, some evidence to base your reason for hope. And he kind of laughed. And he said to me, sir, I don't think you understand. Hope isn't a noun. Hope is a verb. It's not something that you have. The hope you're talking about is something that you have, that you need evidence for, and you need a solid foundation for. He said, no, hope is a verb. It's something that you practice, and you practice it no matter what. Now, Michael said, I'm always going to hope. I always hope. He was right. He did actually, I don't know how he managed it, but he managed to scrape a GCSE in geography. And in doing so, he taught his teacher a lesson, that hope is something that we should just be practicing on a daily basis. It's almost like faith. It's not something that we need rational evidence for. It's something that we just practice.
Thank you,